Now I have around 200 plants at my house.
Hey guys, I'm Neftali Rodriguez with Take a Leap Podcast, and I'm here with
Evan Lundstad.
Sweet. The question is, what's the current hobby you have?
I've gotten into plants recently. So I do it for my job. I take care of plants. I get the ones not in that great of shape, and I can rehab them.
I like to sew.
Okay, what do you like to sew?
I like to sew rabbits.
Raising my marigold plants. I planted some marigolds, and now they're sprouting.
Baking. Ooh, what do you like to bake? Brownies. She does like to bake brownies, and they're very delicious.
I've been loving sourdough recently.
Tell us a little bit about bread making.
You know, it's really a trusted process because when you're first starting off with your starter, it's looking a little scary. But then, about 20 hours later, you have a delicious loaf of bread you can enjoy.
Recovery and sleep. Yeah, I have early morning practices, and so I got to get used to going to bed early, like 9, or else I feel like a zombie for the rest of the day. So,
What are you doing? Are you running, basketball?
lacrosse. So I play lacrosse. It's at 5:30 in the morning.
Right now, definitely school. Trying to be more passionate about the gospel.
I've been golfing and going to the temple.
Ooh, love that. Okay.
I've been trying to get better at the guitar.
Welcome to this episode of Take a Leap. Join us as we talk to young people who are using their faith to change the world.
Hey guys, welcome to Take a Leap Podcast. I'm Neftali Rodriguez, and I'm here with Yehuda Webster.
Hey, shalom, shalom. Good to be here.
Thank you so much, Yehuda, for taking the time to be here with us today. We're super excited to get to know you more and to learn what you're doing to help to make the world a better place. To get the interview started, what's your current obsession/hobby?
I love to box these days. I really got into boxing when I was in Los Angeles. That was a lot of fun. So, yeah, I think that I'd say. And I checked out a boxing gym here in Surinam where I'm based right now. It's different, but it's still fun. It's really good.
Sweet. What inspired you? Was it like Creed? Was it Rocky? Was it just the movies, shows?
You know what? Honestly, my father, I just grew up with stories of him boxing as a kid, and I always wanted to box. And when I was in New York, I was just organizing constantly and never made the time or had the time or whatever it was. And so when I moved to Los Angeles, it opened up perfectly, and the gym was right down the street. Great spot, sports training Los Angeles. Shout out Jonathan Amaya, coach over there is awesome, really, really excellent. And so, yeah, I just fell in love, and it's just been so fun ever since. Yeah.
Keep your body,
Yes.
mind in shape.
Yes.
Sweet. One of mine is I've recently picked up scrapbooking.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I found a box of my family like film photos, and I was like, you know what? I wanted to start making like a collection now. So I
Nice.
like bought a film camera, and I'm just taking like film photos of like my life now, and in the end goal, you know, come 20 years, then my kids can see like, oh, this is what I was up to in my college years, you know. So my goal is to take a picture every single day, and then hopefully make like a
Ooh.
yearbook thing.
Ooh. Yeah, I love that. I also love how things have swung the other way. I mean, I felt like, you know, over the last 15 years, there was a period of time where I felt like, okay, we're done with the analog scrapbooks, photo albums. So it's come back now. People are like, we don't want our digital footprint all on Instagram, you know. There's something nice
Yeah.
about the feel of it, you know. So, yeah,
Mhm.
that's cool. That's cool.
So thanks again, Yehuda, for taking the time to be here today. We're excited to see and hear your thoughts and what you're doing to help people come closer to their community. Tell us a little bit about your faith journey and how did it start and evolve over time?
My faith journey is ever evolving, I'd say, and growing with the help of the Most High, Hashem. I was raised pretty much Jewish. My family has been on a journey of what we call returning to our roots. I was born in Guyana, South America, and my our lineage is of Igbo Jewish lineage. And so because of the history and the legacy of the trauma of the transatlantic slave trade, my ancestors were forced to convert to different religions, primarily Christianity. So my family has been on that journey. We've had an oral history of being Igbo. And in the last 7 years, I've taken a bigger, deeper dive another obsession, if you will. I did a 23andMe. I got my family to do it, and so really confirmed with empirical evidence of our Igbo ancestry. And as of recent years, we visited Nigeria. We went to the east to what's called Igbo land, fellowshipped with Igbo Jews, and that has been really special. I even organized a trip with some other leaders in the States to bring 25 other African descent Jews to Nigeria as well to explore their confirmed or potential Igbo Jewish ancestry. So that lineage has been grounding in the spiritual journey that my parents have been on and that I fell in love with as I grew up, really searching and trying to connect back to the relationship with the creator, with, what we say in Jewish practice oftentimes, Hashem, which just means the name, right? But it refers to the holy name of the creator in Hebrew. And that journey has really been rooted in social justice for me. I think something that I find somewhat unique to Judaism and the Torah is that it's not a nice thing to do when we feel the spark or motivation to do something kind, but rather it is a commandment to pursue justice and to serve the poor and the needy and those who are vulnerable, the most vulnerable in society. And so my Judaism and my faith journey over the last several years has been really rooted both in social justice and also in teaching others and equipping others with the tools to explore their own relationship or lack thereof with Hashem.
That's beautiful. It's so cool to see someone come into touch and to reality to what basically the foundations of our fathers have put and set forth for us, and then experiencing that for ourselves and in seeing, hey, I realize this is a beautiful thing and this is what I choose to do. And this is how I want to change the world and have other people feel the same. And so you're deeply obviously rooted in your faith and passionate about social justice. When did you first realize those two parts of your life weren't separate and that faith could drive activism?
I think that's something that I was grateful to have many teachers growing up that really exposed that for me. And most of all, those being my parents, but various rabbis and Hebrew school teachers over the years. That was always a feature of our Jewish education, was around community service. So that is a piece of what it means to be Jewish. And, whether it's the food pantry that was at my local synagogue or going out to make meals and pass them out to those who are homeless or houseless, that was really imprinted on me from early on. And I also had, being raised in a proud Black household who were deeply connected to our history, was very aware of the racial inequities that are pretty foundational to the United States still to this day. I appreciate the question because even though I had that connection already from my teachers and from the community, when I was in college, and I, for the first time, was experiencing the economic exploitation of racism relative to many of my peers who weren't under the same economic pressures given their European descent background and access to resources that I didn't have. That really changed something for me and motivated me to say, hey, I'm not the only one that's suffering as a college student trying to make ends meet as a student. That was the time when Occupy Wall Street was happening in New York City. I was at Columbia University and the Jewish Theological Seminary at the time. And clear demands from Occupy was to lower the cost of student education and to lower the costs of housing and living, and so I was working 4 jobs as a student just trying to pay tuition, housing, student housing, even. Not even housing in New York, student housing. And so that really propelled me and activated me. And so I eventually linked up with what was my political home for many years, still dear to me to this day, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, who helped really develop me as an organizer. I went through the organizing fellowship back in 2014. And there I was really able to start playing and experiencing what it looks like to weave Jewish practice and ritual with our pursuit of justice for everyone, so that everyone could not just survive, but really thrive.
I'm in college right now, and I think it's so interesting because a lot of the people we've interviewed, they have come to the religious understanding at that point of life. It's not coincidence. I definitely think that it's such a difficult time in our lives where we just graduated high school. We just passed a certain part in our life. Now we're in the middle of the world trying to figure out ourselves, figuring out what we want to do for our lives. It's such a different low. And that doesn't even go into like the personal family things that are going on in everyone's lives. And so could you share like a little moment, something personal of a leap of faith when you had to act on conviction, even if it wasn't comfortable, even if you weren't certain?
You know, after fast forward now, after college, I've been organizing for many years, and particularly around police brutality and finding alternatives to anti-Semitic hate crimes, in particular in New York City. After George Floyd was murdered, I was in the streets like so many others, day in and day out, that summer of 2020. And around Juneteenth, things were already starting to taper off a bit. And I just felt deeply like we hadn't even really gotten a chance to A, mourn, and that B, we can't do this alone. We can't do this without spiritual intervention. We've been striving for decades, if not centuries, right, as people targeted by racism. And nothing yet has changed enough that a Black man wouldn't be kneeled on in broad daylight and killed, you know? And so I, with some comrades and friends and other organizers, we organized a 40-day action. It's called 40 Days of Teshuvah, 40 Days of Return, where we went out to Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn, and we would stand in a circle and confess the ways that we've been contributed to racist systems. And then we would turn east and we would cry out and we would literally shout at the sky. And I would blow a shofar as well, the ram's horn. The ram's horn is used for many reasons in Jewish practice, but one of the things it's used for is it sounds like a wail. And it's also meant to be an alarm clock to wake us up and to perhaps even ignite something in the creator, right, to remember us. And so that I was in a place of deep grief and agony, and yet it was challenging. Here comes the leap of faith. You know, we had a lot of folks who wouldn't even want us to mourn. You know, we got heckled almost weekly, you know, if not multiple times a week. And we were out there every day at sunset doing this cry. You know, rain or shine, we're there, you know, and there were definitely moments of real discouragement and thinking like, this is not worth it. And in the end of the last week of action, we had 60, 70, 80 people out there every day. We ended with maybe 200, 250 people in Grand Army Plaza, people with shofars, people just lifting up their voices and crying out. It was a beautiful thing to be in community and to mourn and to try to soften our hearts such that we can continue to build community in the world that we want to live in.
How have you turned that kind of disappointment or that anger, you could say, and then use your faith to anchor that? You know, how was your faith during those hard moments a North Star for you?
My personal practice was so important in those weeks and days, my personal prayer practice. And I also was blessed that I was part of another spiritual practice community which is where I work as well right now. At the time, we were called Inside Out Wisdom in Action. Today, we're called Kirva, which is Hebrew for connection or closeness. We offer spiritual practice communities. And so I was part of the flagship fellowship at the time, which was training us in how to have a daily personal spiritual practice of meditation, of reflection, journaling, what we call soul accounting, if you will, and prayer practice, or kind of other mantra practices as well. And so those practices helped me stay anchored, even in moments where I felt like I wanted to give up. And even in moments where it was challenging and I was upset. And, there were moments of anger, but it was coming back to my prayer practice and also exercising, as an important piece of the story, moving the body, moving the energy throughout, but really connecting with Hashem, connecting with the Creator is balm to the soul. So it really was my way forward.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people pick up boxing. I'm no boxer, but I feel like there's a stress. There's this I need to let this out, And I feel like, as you said, prayer is so important because I feel like it allows us to just get all of that out. And so that's beautiful. In your own work today, how has faith shaped the way you understand justice, community, and your own personal responsibility?
Something that I've really come to is I really very much believe in organizing. And I also, building people power, fighting for particular candidates that we think will move forward in the work and justice for all. And I think that a key piece of this is changing ourselves and really dropping into who are we called to be, living out the values of the Torah, right? What does it mean to actually not just go to synagogue and keep Shabbat, right? Which in the spiritual practice that I'm involved in is the duties of the limbs, right? What does it mean to actually live out the duties of the heart? To treat your neighbor as yourself, to be kind, to be generous, right? To be giving. And those are just as important. I was actually studying Isaiah, and the first chapter lays out that, the Israelites were exiled because of the hypocrisy, that they were sacrificing. They were doing they were trying to keep all the holidays, but in the meantime, they were also exploiting their neighbor and trampling on the vulnerable. They said, this is, in the voice of Hashem, this is detestable, right? You're out here playing like you're righteous, and on the other hand, you're not actually living righteously. And so for me, that's been a big part of, in pursuit of justice. How do we actually start to live out those values ourselves? We don't need an organization to organize us into feeding the hungry. No, you could just go into a store, you pass somebody on the street, ask them, what do you need? How can I help you?
I love how you mentioned meaning, because I feel like that's something we're always figuring out, whether we're 33, whether they're 18, 24, we're all trying to figure out our own meaning. And a lot of our listeners are maybe trying to find their own meaning. In a world that can feel cynical or divided at some times, what gives you hope about faith communities right now, especially among young people?
People are turning to the spiritual. I think people are recognizing that material life and consumerism satisfies a particular base need in a moment. It's not fulfilling in the long term. And I think more and more people are in search mode, trying to go deeper. What is the most important elements of life here? And trying to get back in touch with their spiritual selves. It's a muscle like anything else. I think the spirit, it's like your triceps, if you will. If you don't exercise it, it will atrophy and you will stop to even hear the voice of your spirit, right? And so the more that we yearn and strive to connect to that spiritual self, the more and more we'll be able to hear that small voice inside. And I see people rejecting more and more social media And, as we started here, your obsession right now is the scrapbook, right? Like not just putting your whole life on Instagram, but coming back to the tactile. And that is very, very hopeful.
I'm glad I can make a positive impact. Remind me where you're at.
I'm in Surinam. Surinam. Do you know where that is? Many people don't, so don't feel bad.
I'm not going to pretend to know where that is.
That is a small country on top of Brazil.
Wow.
You're like, there's a country on top of Brazil?
There's a country on top of Brazil.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
what?
yes.
Explain to us why you're there.
When I was 16, I think one of the other pivotal moments in my life you're speaking to before these moments, defining moments, I came to study in Suriname in high school at my uncle's school, the Alchemax Academy. And I came with a letter from my rabbi explaining that I can chant from the Torah. And I brought it to the only synagogue in Suriname, in the capital, Paramaribo. And they said, hey, we'd love for you to read. Can you prepare this week's Torah portion? I said, no problem. I prepared and I finished reading the first Torah portion. I looked up and people were visibly in tears. And I thought maybe I disrespected a cultural norm. So I turned to the person next to me and said, what's going on? Like, have I done something wrong? And he said, no, it's just that no one's heard the Torah read from in 7 years because we've lost the practicing it. So that was a real pivotal moment for me in my life because at a time I was experiencing a fair amount of racism in the Jewish community in New Jersey that I was a part of. And I felt discouraged in what I could offer. I had wanted to be a rabbi, but I felt like, man, maybe communities would appreciate what I have to offer given some of the racism that I experienced. And here I was serving this community and they deeply appreciated what I was putting out. And so that reawakened and re-energized me and said, hey, maybe there are communities out here that would appreciate what I have to offer in a faith-based sense. So I stayed connected with the community over the years, and they'd reach out every now and again and say, hey, it's the high holy days, it's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, can you come down and help out? And the last year I came with my now wife, and the community said, hey, what would it look like for y'all to come down here and support us for 6 months? And, we looked at each other. She enjoys Suriname, and so she said yes before I did. And we have made another leap of faith, if you will. Felt like this is the right time where we can really put ourselves in a mode of service and to give back. Really helped me when I was a youth, so striving to give back here where I can.
Wow. I want to dive a little deeper in what you said. How did that feel to you knowing that you have an impact on these people's lives and now seeing the contrast of like, that's how I felt before and this is how you feel now? And how has that propelled you in your future and your faith activism now?
It was very inspiring and encouraging moment and a paradigm shift. When we're young, even as we get older, the community that you're a part of can feel like the entire world. Sometimes you forget that there's so many different branches of our global family that are in need of support. And there are many folks out here that can appreciate what we have to offer. And that, gotta find our homes where we can be of value and be valued, right? And really inspired me to persevere, even going against the grain in contexts where I wouldn't be initially accepted, but to push through and get the education that I needed and do the work that I know that I'm here to do. And so it really helped to shore up my conviction and give me a sense of belonging that is, I think, very helpful in following through with what your felt calling is, right? To continue to take more and more leaps.
Awesome. Well, kind of as we wrap up, And for a final question, what piece of advice would you give to our young listeners today who are in search of meaning, who are in search of maybe their purpose, who are maybe scared to take that leap of faith? What advice would you give to them?
I think my advice would be to immerse yourself in service. And if you're trying to find meaning, if you not sure what your purpose is, and immerse yourself in service and support that service with prayer. And I think that those are some two guiding pillars that are very helpful. I think service is just the path forward in being in close relationship with the Creator. That's what the Creator wants, for us to do justice, pursue justice, to help those who need more than we do. And if you do that, I trust that you'll find meaning, you'll find a sense of purpose, and you will find value, not just in life, but also in the communities that you're a part of.
Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, take a leap and share it with your friends and family. And follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Take a Leap Pod. Take a Leap is a production of BYU Radio. I'm Ocean Marshall, and our production team includes Heidi Hansen and Neftali Rodriguez.